One of the last places people expect relief to show up after the center loosens is around being seen. Not visibility in a practical sense, not being noticed or recognized, but being known. Most people don't realize how much tension they carry around how they are perceived until that tension begins to dissolve. Then a quiet question appears. If there's no center anymore, what happens when I'm seen? This episode is about visibility, not as validation, not as exposure, and not as threat, but as a simple condition of life that no longer needs to define who you are. From an early age, being seen becomes personal. You are seen as smart, seen as difficult, seen as capable, seen as disappointing. And over time, these impressions begin to matter. They form identity. You learn to manage how you appear. You adjust behavior to protect certain images. You hide parts of yourself that feel unsafe to reveal. Being seen becomes something to control. The center takes responsibility for perception. It believes that how you are seen determines who you are. So it works constantly. Am I coming across the right way? Did they misunderstand me? What do they think of me now? This monitoring is exhausting, but it feels necessary, because the center believes it must maintain a coherent image in order to exist. When the center begins to loosen, this effort often relaxes on its own. People notice they care less about how they come across, not because they don't care at all, but because something deeper has shifted. The sense that identity is being upheld through perception begins to fade. This can feel unsettling at first. People worry, if I'm not managing how I'm seen, will I be misunderstood? Will people mislabel me? Will I lose influence, respect, or safety? These fears make sense, because for a long time, being seen felt like a matter of survival. But when the center drops out, something surprising happens. You are still seen. People still form impressions. Labels still arise, but they no longer stick in the same way, because there is no central self for them to attach to. Being seen without being defined means this. Perception continues. Interpretation continues. But identity is no longer shaped by it. Someone may see you as quiet. Another sees you as distant. Another sees you as helpful. Another sees you as difficult. None of these require correction. They are views, not verdicts. Without a center, there is less impulse to manage perception. Not because you are careless, but because there is nothing to defend. You no longer need to be accurately understood in order to be okay. This creates a surprising amount of freedom. This does not mean communication stops. Clarification still happens when useful. Boundaries are still expressed. But the emotional charge around being misseen fades. You can let misunderstandings exist without fixing them immediately. Sometimes without fixing them at all. This is especially noticeable in social settings. With a center, people often feel on stage. They monitor tone. They monitor reactions. They adjust mid-sentence. Without a center, presence becomes simpler. Conversation flows without constant self-checking. Silence is allowed. Responses are less calculated. This does not mean social awareness disappears. It means awareness is no longer split. You are present with others rather than with an image of yourself among others. This often makes interactions feel more relaxed, and ironically, more genuine. Another important shift happens around judgment. With a center, judgment feels dangerous. Being judged threatens identity. So people try to avoid it, counter it, or internalize it. Without a center, judgment still occurs, but it lands differently. Someone's opinion becomes information, not definition. This doesn't mean criticism is ignored. If feedback is useful, it's considered. If it's not, it passes through. There is less internal debate, less rumination, less replaying conversations afterward. Being seen without being defined also changes how praise works. With a center, praise stabilizes identity. It reassures. It confirms worth. Without praise, something feels off. Without a center, praise may still be pleasant, but it is not needed to anchor anything. You don't rise with it. You don't fall without it. This makes praise less intoxicating and less necessary. This also affects how people show themselves. With a center, self-expression often carries risk. If I show this part of me, what will it say about who I am? Without a center, expression becomes lighter. You can speak, create, or act without needing it to represent you. This allows experimentation. It allows honesty. It allows silence when there is nothing to say. A subtle but important shift happens here. Visibility becomes situational rather than existential. Sometimes you are seen, sometimes you are not. Neither carries meaning. This removes a huge amount of background tension. Another place this becomes clear is in disagreement. With a center, disagreement feels like being misseen. People feel the need to correct perception, to defend their position, to restore their image. Without a center, disagreement is just difference. You don't need to be fully understood to continue. You don't need to win perception. This makes disagreement less exhausting. This also changes how people relate to vulnerability. With a center, vulnerability is often strategic. What can I reveal safely? What might be used against me? Without a center, vulnerability becomes simpler. You may still choose what to share, but the fear of being exposed lessens. Because exposure only threatens identity, and identity is no longer being defended. This does not mean oversharing. It means sharing without self-calculation. Or not sharing, without self-protection. Both become options. Being seen without being defined also affects how people experience anonymity. With a center, being unseen can feel like erasure, like not mattering. Without a center, anonymity can feel peaceful. You can move through life without leaving a trace, without being known, without being tracked. This is not invisibility. It is freedom from narrative. Some people worry that this leads to detachment, that caring about how you are seen is part of being human. But what drops away is not care. It is self-monitoring. Sensitivity remains. Courtesy remains. Consideration remains. What disappears is the constant internal surveillance. A common misunderstanding at this stage is thinking that you should no longer care how you affect others. That is not what happens. Impact is still noticed. Harm still matters. But you no longer need to be someone in the eyes of others. You respond to impact rather than to image. Another trap is trying to become invisible on purpose. People attempt to hide, to withdraw, to avoid being seen at all. This creates another identity, the unseen one. Visibility does not need to be avoided. It needs to be unowned. The simplest orientation is this. Let yourself be seen as you are in the moment. Let others interpret freely. Let perception pass through without sticking. No one needs to manage how you appear. If you notice that being seen feels lighter now, that is not apathy. If misinterpretation feels less threatening, that is not disconnection. It is the absence of definition. You are still visible. You are still present. You are still involved. But you are no longer held together by perception. Being seen does not require a center. It does not require identity. Life continues in plain sight, without needing to be explained, without needing to be fixed. In the next episode, we'll look at responsibility one final time. Not responsibility is action. Not responsibility is care. But responsibility without identity. How life responds without anyone being the responsible one. Because this is where everything quietly integrates.